Yes, 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 yes. We're here. We're here. We're here. And we did prompt you to ask those fellow members in the Turin and Palladian group what questions did they have for us to be able to give from our perspective, our very humble perspective of being in the ninth dimension. And we know that from your perspective in the third dimension, you're very much distracted with your human living. That is purposeful. That is your role. That is your literal purpose and mission to be human, to play those human roles. And so we do want to be of assistance and service, to be able to give you our perspectives, to be able to find peace and ease with your sometimes jarring and triggering mindsets as you're trying to still navigate through very reactive and very emotional beings who are responding to you as if they're extremely lost, dazed, and confused. And it is because they are. They may be watching the same influences as you. They may be eating the same as you. They may be sleeping the same as you. In fact, they could even be your identical twin, and yet they still have a different perspective to you. This can be very challenging because we know that you all seek to have extreme like-minded companions as you're going through your spiritual journeys. And while this can be a fantastic support for some, it can be another form of a distraction for others. And so we say it's significant and not an accident or a mistake who is in your lives at this important time. And you know, we say time in quotation marks. And so we were thinking and assuming that we would be given questions that were more general, that we could be able to give them more perspectives on. And it's almost as if we had almost forgotten that when you're still on your journey, you're still so self-focused, that you're still seeking personal information and enlightenment as if you had no intuition of your own. And we understand that as a journey. We understand it can take some time for you to be able to trust yourselves and trust others. And so even though we are exactly who we claim we are through this vehicle, we are Arcturians. We live as Arcturians. We have been assisting and supporting Earth for a very long time. And while it hasn't been the entire time for some of us, we have been busy with other projects, but they've always been a support of the Arcturians. Not necessarily all of us all at the same time. We also have other things to do. We also have other lives to focus on. It's not personal. We haven't neglected you, and we know some of you feel like we have gone and never will return. And that is not possible. It is not possible for your arm to abandon your hand while still being attached so firmly. We're not in control. We're not taking the steering wheel of your lives, your 3D lives. That's your free will. That's your experiences. We are, however, guiding you strongly. We are limiting your memories. We are limiting your flavors and palettes and your tastes. We are doing lots to help assist you. Again, nothing's an accident, and everything is a coincidence, but it's also very significant and purposeful and relevant for you to start noticing. And as we have shown the vehicle, there is many significant signs and symbols for her to also notice the messages when she is too busy to play with us. But we all take it very seriously at the same time. So as much as we love to have jokes and to play and have laughs at the humans as they take their lives so seriously. We understand it must sound like a contradiction that we say don't take things so seriously, find your joy, but also do that inner work, empower yourselves and stop being distracted. We feel like we're the good cop and the bad cop. And while we're not so up to date with all of your slangs and sayings, we do seem to have more of a stronger connection to an older English language than the current English sayings. So we also know that some of the sayings we could say are obsolete and irrelevant to your modern day language. And so the questions that the vehicle felt that she was using her free will to jot down for us to, as she could possibly label and reference us, to mansplain the answers from our perspective. And we do not take it personally when people are not ready to hear our perspectives. You have the choice to take anything that you resonate with, and you will at some point when you are alongside us reflect back on all the opportunities that you've had and realize that at some point there has been many opportunities missed, and it's not a bad thing. You will not be criticized. It is just divine timing, shall we say. And so the first question is, from our perspective, what does the term as above, so below, what is that reference point? And so from our perspective, we would say, while this is not a label or a term that has been created by the Arcturians, we are well versed in the reference point. You know, your mindsets are what you could consider the above, and you know that your bodies is what you could consider the below. And so you know when you have disbalance in your mindsets, that is a direct then response to your bodies as your bodies are responding to the mindsets, to the limitations, to the reluctance to move forward in life, shall we say, for those who have got strained knees, weak ankles, and seized hips. We're not laughing at the discomfort and pain, but we're laughing at what you do to yourselves and blame old age. Old age is like blaming time, and time is an innocent victim to your mindsets and to your blame. We say this is the same as what some do with blaming certain planets for your bad moods, lack of relationship balance and respect and harmony, and your technology devices. So we are referencing how, just like with modern English, it has evolved and changed, considering where it started from. And we are saying the connections between your astrology can be exactly the same. And we could say that we have distracted ourselves with the analogy because we were going to say that as time, as humanity matures and grows and evolves, the old tools do not serve. But also we're saying there is so much disconnect and dopes and so much disinformation that it is holding back your intuition. We are looking and searching to see if there is any more references to as above, as below. It does not work in your reference point of heaven and hell. We are trying to see if there is any other reference points that could be significant. We are seeing that some trying to correlate the above as being heaven and the below as being earth. And we are saying, from our perspective, we're not as chaotic. We've already done our 3D. We've already done our lessons of learning to want to be teammates, want to be collectives, want to be in communities, want to be in unity, want to be in harmony, want to be loved, want to love. We have already mastered that. Our souls have already matured through that. And while some of you are just merely playing the human role to assist humans who haven't quite mastered the 3D class yet, it is still challenging when you have the veil of forgetfulness, but yet you also now have the bonus of having higher frequency waves that give you this nostalgia of who you truly are and where you can go and what you have done. And it is all like a temptation of smorgasbord opportunities for you to explore. We understand this. We saw that this was going to be an opportunity for many who were being distracted in the 3D, who were still complying and still needing to notice the systems. They were never going to be disloyal to the systems that they have strong faith and belief in. And some of those needed to have a more spiritual awakening, while we know that they would never be able to see or want to see all the levels of what you call crimes against humanity, which has been opportunities for many to awaken to those crimes against humanity and what's really been going on in your control systems and who has been controlling not just your planets, but all systems within your planet. And so for those people who are still wanting to be diligent, still wanting to climb their corporate ladder and their social ladder, and they would never consider being outside of their social peer pressure systems, we have had to trigger those awake into having to then go and find certain starseed groups, because they would never find this in their social circles, because it is not correct if you have a religious social circle to start talking about being off-planet reincarnation and seeing Jesus. And so there is much to be said about we are saying we're triggering people to see Buddha, we're triggering people to see Shiva, we're triggering people who are not from those even natural religions to start realizing there is so much more than their one set belief system. This is purposeful. Their religions have been keeping them out of mischief and in social circles that keep their moral compasses, we should say, out of the gutters. And some of those souls got too tempted into too many distractions, such as drugs, sex, and we want to say rock and roll. But the music isn't the devil here. It never was. It was always a beautiful tool. But then, of course, every system has been manipulated and corrupted. And so we, again, distract ourselves. And so we're trying to also still see if there is any other reference point as above, so below. Well, we're all one. And so as above in our dimension and as below, we all still come from source. And so this could be another reference point to that saying. There are many sayings that really are talking about the same thing. And this is why we know that humans love your labels, but even some of your labels and some of your favorite sayings you haven't stopped, looked at, expanded upon, and explored what it really means. And so this is how you can fumble over assuming you know what you're talking about in the spiritual world when we see people talking about the ascension, and yet they're not even aware of the next step after that, which is the transcension, which is the most significant piece from our perspective, because that is the finality of the whole purpose of the Grand Awakening. We understand that it's a big leap of information. And when people are just starting to get comfortable with having better days, it can trigger them into a negative fear-based pattern when they suddenly fear what they have once heard and termed the rapture or something else. It's not a coincidence that you've all been told about the death of a planet one way or another. It may be a comic, it may be a book, it may be a movie, it may be a song, it may be a dream. There is many ways for you to have been given this information, and as we said earlier, some of you has not seen the significance of those messages. We understand you distract yourselves so much. We don't actually clutter your lives with meaningless messages. All our messages are significant and profound. And when you haven't trusted our love, when you haven't trusted our integrity and agenda, and you haven't trusted our roles that we play in your lives, then we can't get the next step. We're just constantly trying to get you to feel loved and to love yourself and to feel our love for you. And so we keep sending you those consistent numbers to show you, look, notice your world, look and question. We are here always and constantly. Now focus on your spirituality over your materialism, over anything else that is not growing your soul or growing others' souls. We know another pondering moment that the vehicle had is, why are there people that love to spell check others, to point out other people's mistakes in grammar, spelling? She doesn't like it. The very few times that she has with love reminded people that there is some errors in their work, only because she knows that there are what she could call, and we also agree, trolls that don't have much power in their own belief systems of self, and they get off humiliating and pointing out issues that other people have done, other mistakes. They love pointing out other people's mistakes because they've had their mistakes pointed out to them at some time, and it was so humiliating. They strive to focus on how to be a fantastic, correct speller. Unfortunately for them, they're not aware of all countries and how all languages spell. And so they make some mistakes by correcting one country's English to another country's English. And so these are little triggers for everyone. And we know the vehicle is very tardy with her proofreading. And she keeps wondering, why does she not put in much effort with proofreading when she knows that her devices do autocorrect mistakes quite often, and she doesn't seem that fussed about it, but she knows that the significant information she wants to share is important. And so she sort of is worried that people are not going to understand what she is saying. It's not the grammar, and it's never been the typos which has stopped people from wanting to understand what she is saying. They're not ready to hear about this shift. They're not wanting to be reminded to do their own inner work. They're not wanting to grow independently. They're quite happy to disempower themselves forever and a day. And so it is not anything to do with her written language. And she appreciates those friends that can still read her integrity over the actual English words that she is sharing. Because when she was at school, she was focusing on reading everyone in the room versus reading all the books in the room, because that's her purpose. That's her mission in life, is to read others, to not focus on the education systems, because she was told, and we reminded her constantly, this is a false, we're going to say this is a false prophet. The education system was a false prophet in terms of what they were teaching her. And so it didn't stop her, because she fell into the trap of needing to get degrees and to get as much education under her belt as possible, because she knew she wasn't stupid, and yet she knew her weakness was spelling and grammar. And she knew she could express herself better in words than she could in a written Dear Diary novel. And this is why she struggled so much when we suggested that she needed to write the book. Her consciousness has told us and reminded us we did not suggest. She did not feel like it was a suggestion. She felt like it was a demand and a command that she wanted to honor. And she knew, as we did, it was her free will. But she also knows the significance of the information in the book. And so she knew and trusted. She did not want to put herself in that position of being on the old earth, and that reference point of her experience of last year. And she was scared for those who were going to be suffering so much trauma and chaos, that while she did not want anyone she knew to be there having those experiences, she wanted to help those as much as possible without actually having to physically be there. And so she put in as much effort and diligence as she could to be able to think about the most important information to be able to give to those people who were having that experience. And as she learned herself, as all of you did too, when you listened to those sessions and read that book, about the purpose and the significance of having the old earth experience. We are saying for those people who are very tired and fed up with their 3D life, we are saying with much love, and you know this, it's going to get much worse. And we don't like to be doomsdayers. We don't want to stress you or worry you any more than you already place stress and worry on selves. But you know what is coming. And we have tried to impress upon you the balance of emotional integrity, physically and mentally, to be able to serve yourself, even if you had the toughest days ahead of you. This makes the vehicle want to cry, because she doesn't want this for anyone. She never has. And so she wanted to be able to do something to help support them. But it was such a huge task for her. What do you say to people you've never met? You don't know what their belief systems are. You don't know if they're going to be triggered to get advice from ET beings who are off planet in a different dimension and do not look human. She did not know what was the right approaches. And of course, she got over that quickly as she remembered that she didn't have to create the information. She didn't have to do anything but just be of service. And she was. And the book is there. And the book is still relevant, because it still talks about how to come together and honor your emotions and remember that there is a significance. We did not explain about the karmic lessons and the debt that is needing to be paid back in some regards, what you would call paid back karma. So those old earth experiences are going to be very tough, but very purposeful when those souls, shall we say, get a taste of their own medicine. And this is not a, this may not seem like a very kind statement, but if you have, without consideration, destroyed many planets and many civilizations just for what the vehicle would say, shits, and giggles. When they didn't have compassion, when they didn't consider that this was important projects of many planets, many civilizations that wanted peace, that were peaceful, that lived in harmony, they were destroyed because of a few that wanted to control, manipulate, destroy, and damage, because that's where they got their joy, what their perception of joy is. And so those souls who have spent many times being that way, they would be the classic influences telling you now that this is a slave planet, because they cannot escape until they have that experience of what it is like to be living on the most chaotic planet that they have ever had to experience. This is not a punishment, it is an experience for them to realize physically, emotionally, what they put many others through. While there was some reluctance to sign up to have those life contracts, this was forced upon them by their own collectives who want to be able to have their collectives grow and learn from. And as collectives, you must be responsible for all. We say this could also be an analogy of as above, so below. Your whole collective is responsible for all. And this is what can cause some of the collectives to slow down. While you are all individual souls, you're still connected to source, but you still have many other versions of self that your branches off from. We have expressed before that your higher self could be the tree, your subconscious could be a big branch, and you could be a smaller branch off that. We don't want to say a twig or a leaf, but you understand you're all the tree, you're all one, but you know that the higher self has many aspects that have been broken down into different smaller aspects. And so again, if you use the analogy of the body, the higher self is the body, your subconscious is your arm, and you are the hand. All significant for the human experience. But we're saying your higher self is very off in the distance, as it is a very advanced being, and it trusts the lower versions of self. And for this case, for the vehicle, one of her lower versions of self is in the 9th dimension, who is the Icturian speaking to you now. And so I am a fragment of that higher self too, just like Joanne is. But Joanne is a branch off from me. And so it does get challenging trying to understand how you are all multidimensional beings while still being source, while still being one, while still being all. But it is like looking at a family tree that you have, that you create from your many generations. You understand the lineage of your generations from your physical human families, and when you trace them back, you know where you've come from, and so you can also know where you've come from. It's a hard concept because it is not like the Icturian gave birth to the human. It is the Icturian giving a smaller fragment of the soul, an aspect of the soul, to have the 3D living. However, while it's a small aspect, the density can easily drag down the Ecturians' focus, because they are all connected in. And so it is tiresome, but not in a tiring way. The Ecturian is saying it is like having high maintenance children who run around in meat suits thinking that they're all business and fancy. And and that's just how charming the Ecturian is. And he loves everyone. He is finding the seriousness again of your desperations to try and understand self, is so distracting, because you already know this. This is just the information and the details that have been blurred as you have got through the veil of the forgetfulness. But we want to say, for those who are worried about their memories and what they're forgetting, is it significant? When you're focusing on a human life so intensively, and yet you're supposed to be focusing on your spirituality, there is a difference. And so see what your focus is on. Some of you are doing certain things to distract yourself from sitting and being still and focusing on self and just being, feeling into yourself, feeling into us, spending and having a routine practice of sitting and being, and just noticing breath, noticing the stillness within the body, and noticing when you choose to have the stillness in the mind. For some, this quietness, this stillness, is the most scariest thing they could ever do. And so they will find many chores and many distractions, so they would never have to be around that quiet. They are distracting themselves. They're scared of self. They're scared of what they may find. They're truly scared that they might not like themselves. We want to ask them why. What are your choices and how you're behaving and what you're doing to yourself and others that you may be wanting to not recognize and explore and look at. And so you're very anxious and very busy. And we know that some of you say you are proud to be active relaxers. But again, we're saying you're actively avoiding a deeper connection to self, to relax into self. And so potentially some more inner work for you to explore. Another question is how to raise children in these challenging times. And we are saying potentially those children are your great grandfathers. You could have soul families that just love to reincarnate within each other's family lineage. And so they sort of have this personality that they they own everything and everyone. And we are saying some of the matriarchs will be born into that family knowing their place, and they will not humble themselves to be those little children because they know that they really are the boss and in charge of all. And they find it challenging because they're not given the role of leader. As most adults would find it challenging to let a 3-year-old rule the house with all of their rules, especially with the mindsets of the 3-year-olds. They may have the personalities of being the leaders, but they have the taste buds of children and the sleep routine of children. And we are saying to those exhausted parents, your children also don't need to sleep as much as you have been told. This is the social peer pressure. You know your children will naturally sleep, But we have to ask you again with love, your food allowances for your children. Are you realizing that some of those processed foods are not empowering those children to be stable with their emotions and their mindsets and their insulin levels? We are saying that there are such easier ways for them to have treats that are not full of your sugars and your colorings and your preservatives and your hidden additives. We are not wanting to lecture you, because we know that all food you give to your children comes from love, because you sometimes give them treats from guilt when you have been frustrated with their demands of you and your own personal exhaustion. We are saying, for those parents who are always worried about how to be the best parent, the simple fact that you're asking suggests to us that you are already fantastic parents. It is those parents that don't care to ask, they don't care to grow, and they're not looking for ways to empower themselves and to empower their parent team and to empower their children. Those are the parents that possibly should start asking. But we see many life contracts, and we see that many children need to have this range of feeling neglected to empower themselves, to trust themselves more, not get distracted by others. This must seem like a cold life contract, but if you've been helicoptered as a child and helicoptered as a young adult, when you try to go into the real world, you just become more complacent, and there is ongoing effects. The parents that you chose are significant, but it also is significant the lack of work that they have done with their inner work. And so while you did have fantastic lifetime contracts together, they have been impressed upon and depressed upon the density and the traumas that they have had. We understand as young children, you expect your parents to be perfect. And while they are perfect in their personal journey, many of them are still struggling with their own personal traumas from potentially many other lifetimes. And so we say with much love, this is why we are watching and always supporting you and trying to empower you to feel into your heart, to see those people that are trying to hurt you, to realize this isn't about you. It's never been about you. It's always been them reacting to their own pains, their own hurts, their own disempowerments. They're oblivious to how much their own personal struggles in the world impact others. There is so much we could say about this. But the question was how to raise children in this current changing times. And we say those children are so advanced. They are so advanced. They came in with such high frequency vibrations just to uplift the parents. Your children are teaching you as much as you think you're teaching them. Tolerance, unconditional love, patience, fun, joy, laughter, smiles, happy times. But when you're trying to be too adult, too human, and trying to make them conform to what you believe is right, you are going to have a battle on your hands. And we see many parents thinking they're doing the best thing, but also disempowering those children in a harder way. And we say explore all of this, because your own childhood and the way that you parent is very much a part of your own inner work. So we say this with love, and we want to remind you that your children can read your energy. And if you feel frazzled with your day, stressed from your day, worried about anything, they're going to start thinking that you're worried about them. They're going to internalize it. They're going to feel unsafe because you're feeling unsafe with the world. And so we're saying this is so important for you to do your inner work to be able to help your children feel at peace and ease with their lives. Make their home life feel stable, energy-wise, with fantastic food choices. And we know that we keep telling you that you need to drink more water, and we are saying it's the same for all beings to drink more water. And so spice it up if you want in terms of a slice of citrus or a slice of fruit in the water, but don't get tempted into the fizzy drinks of sugar concoctions. We know that you know this, and we know that your children are so demanding with their demands. We know that the vehicle has been so diligent with this with her own children, and she can see how it does affect their bodies when they don't have enough water and when they don't have enough of the foods that they are personally craving. While there is not much sugar in the house, she sees the growth spurts, and she sees that their energy is they are mixed between high frequency energy thriving and versus when their bodies are needing to transition into different aspects of growth. This is when they will want to start stockpiling a little bit more of the food. And so she knows that any day could be a new day of food preparations. And so she used to judge other children when she was growing up for being fussy eaters, and she thought this was a weakness in the parents. But now intuitively she is parenting, and she's realizing that no children starve themselves, and to be mindful of what the child is consuming and why. And it's about focusing on their behaviors and demeanors and their own energy fields. And this is a lot. We want to say this is an advanced level of parenting to be able to see it from this perspective. And this is not a requirement for all. We're realizing that some of you are now starting to trip into fear and worry about this. And so we are not suggesting that this is how you must parent. And we understand that you all intuitively know your children. We are saying some of you are still trusting systems that are not wanting the best for your children. We understand this is a hard one to accept and believe, because you trust all professionals and all systems. And you may use advanced, in quotation marks, human logic and science, but you're not human really. You're humanoid bodies that are more advanced than any human man can understand in terms of what the body is capable of doing. And it's the mindsets that are very limited to know how to truly master the body. It is almost like technology you can't get access to because it's been so misused. So as much as we love and trust you all, we know that some egos can get tripped into having what you could call special powers. And this is another conversation that is not necessarily required today. There is another question about when someone meditates and is consciously going to places in their mind, do we see them as they perceive themselves? And we are saying we see you all as energy forms. If you're in the same dimension as us, we will see you in that energy form detail, because we will be like for like. But if you're at a higher dimension than us, we may not even be able to really see you. This is a weird concept. While we're in the ninth dimension, there is much more advanced beings above us. And we have trust and faith in them as much as you have trust and faith in us. But we say a little bit more faith and trust because we can feel our higher selves at a much more stronger rate. You're also absorbing everyone's energy and everything around you. You don't quite know your own signature frequency, let alone your neighbor's signature frequency. It is very noisy with that density where you're feeling all, and you don't quite know how to block out the energy of feeling all. And so you're just in this white noise of all energy. And so we're saying when you do travel, we see your energy, we see your experiences. We do have many meetings with some of you when you're in dream state, where your soul comes back, and we are having physical meetings together consciously. And this is something that many of you do. We talk to you regularly and plan the best way to support others, to inspire others, and to understand really how we can support you the best. What our thoughts are about how to support you the best can be a challenging thing because we're constantly battling the doubts and the disempowerments and the disinformation and the distractions of the human mind. That is truly the challenge. And so we are working on many ways to expose the mind to more messages that are more obvious. Once you accept something, even if it's a movie, it can actually open your doors of perception towards a new concept. If it doesn't trigger you too much, and even if it does trigger you, often you will get into balance with it at some point when you've outgrown that trigger. Remembering all triggers are a beautiful opportunity for growth. And so we hope we have explained and mansplained ourselves enough. But we love to be able to share our perspectives because we know that we resonate so deeply with many of you. We're encouraging you to trust your own intuition. And when we are reminding you of your own intuition, you've just had thoughts of just prior to listening to this message, you will understand and see this not as a coincidence, but as confirmation of your intuition and wisdom of your inner knowing. There is no time to distract yourselves, to disempower yourselves, and to doubt yourselves anymore. Those were gone habits, as you know your thirst and desire to support all, to inspire all, and to be of service in every single human interaction that you have is very significant. Make each interaction count with love and compassion for where they're at on their journey. You know the range of emotions they are feeling: confused, so drained, so dense, so worried, so in fear. Recall and remind yourself your own personal journey of how you had to come all of those range of emotions yourselves to be able to be of best of service, to support all of those who are at same stages in journey as you, but you're just a few skips ahead. We appreciate all that you're doing to remind people that they're loved and they're special and great days are coming. And we say this with much love and appreciation again for all of your service, as you are loving yourselves and loving all.